Welcome to Meliora's channel, your go-to place for C# and data analysis tutorials, products hands-on demos, and insider secrets to keep you at the cutting edge of innovation. Our goal is to break down complex tech topics to a level that you will easily understand to supercharge your skills. Without further ado, let's jump right in.
In the next few lectures, we're going to be looking at the various lookup functions in Excel, including VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, using index match, and also looking at the legacy lookup function and why it's no longer in use and all that. Okay, let's get right into it. So here we are in Excel. This file is available in the resources, so you can download it in case you want to follow along with the lecture. So we're going to be learning how to do lookups for data in ranges and data in tables. So here I have a range. I have ID, score, and then name. And the numbers here are just the numbers of the column. So column 1 is the ID column, column 2 is the score, and column 3 is name. And on the lookup underscore range sheet, that's where we're going to have our functions. So I have here single return, function name, the input into the function, and then the score. So we're trying to get the score for the person, for Charles. I just chose a person from that table, either using his name or his ID. And I'm also going to show you how we can do that using a horizontal range. That's where HLOOKUP and all these ones are going to come into play. And then we're also going to try and do that using the legacy function so that you can see the difference between the legacy function and the other newer functions, and also why the legacy function is no longer in use. Okay. So let's go ahead and begin. So remember that this is the table. So from A1 to C11 rather. A1 to C11. Okay, let's begin. So we're going to do tables later. Let's go ahead and start with learning how to look up values in a range. So first things first, let's start using VLOOKUP, and we're trying to use the ID to get the score of Charles. For reference, his score is 97. So let's go. Again, we're going to start with equal to, then VLOOKUP, and then open parentheses. So now we can see VLOOKUP. So the first thing we need is the lookup value, which is the ID here. That's the input. And then we'll put a comma. And then we now need the table array. And if you remember, it's on the data sheet, and it's A1 to C11 on that sheet. And we now need the column index number. So we're looking for score. And that's where these numbers come into play, because score is on the second column. That's what we're trying to get. So we're trying to find the ID, and then we're trying to get the value for the ID on the second column, which is there. So we're going to say 2, and then we are now going to go ahead and close the parentheses. And then we are now going to click enter. Giving us a score of 97, and that is in fact the score for Charles. Now let's do this exact same thing, but this time around using Charles as the input, as the lookup value. Lookup value Charles, the table array, again is on the data sheet A1 to C11, and then score is in the second column. Now we're getting an error. Why is that? We're getting this error because we're trying to find something here at the rightmost and then get something in this column. So VLOOKUP only looks for things on the leftmost column. Okay, that's why we're getting this error. Now, I want you to also notice something. Rather, I'm going to show you a common one thing that we did that you may have not noticed we omitted, and I'm going to show you why it's very important to put that in. So now you can see that we tried to check for Charles at this leftmost column here, and it didn't work because the rightmost rather, because VLOOKUP only checks for things from left out from here to here. It doesn't go this way. So let's switch these two around and see what happens. So just copy that, put the table somewhere here, and let's now put the name here. And we can see immediately that we are now getting 97. Oh, what was this? We are still getting a score for ID, even though it's not really here. We're getting a score for Nancy. Now, why is that? Well, this is very simple. It's simply because we haven't put that we want an exact match. So if we just go ahead and add that in, now we are getting that it's not there. Same here. We want an exact match, and that's what we have. So you can see they've effectively switched. Whereas if I bring the ID back here, now they switched again. So now Charles is no longer there, but we're correctly finding the ID and getting the correct score. So you always want to make sure you're getting an exact match, or right in your VLOOKUP. So you always want to make sure it's exact. So let's just go ahead and clean that up. So just in case anyone has ever encountered that kind of situation. So now let's look at XLOOKUP, how XLOOKUP is going to handle those two instances. Now we see the limitation of VLOOKUP, so we can't go this way, we can only go this way. So now let's try and check all those things with the XLOOKUP. So we're just going to write equals to XLOOKUP. Now we need the lookup value, which is the ID. We need the lookup array. Now notice it's saying lookup array, unlike VLOOKUP, which is the full table array. So the lookup array is just going to be the column where that value is located in your range. So in this situation, our lookup array, since it's the ID, is going to be this. Because this is the column 1, or this is the range here where the value we're trying to look up is in. Then comma. Then we need the return array. And what we're trying to return is the score. So we're just going to go all the way down like that. Okay. And one other beautiful thing with, just delete that, XLOOKUP, you can further customize it. So if the value is not found, you can choose what you want it to say. If you don't want it to just throw the NA error, the not available error. And you can choose the match mode, which we are going to do for exact match. You saw what happened in the VLOOKUP when we didn't have the exact match. And we're just going to go ahead and close the parentheses. As you can see, if not found is optional, match mode is optional, search mode is also optional, but we're going to just go ahead and put these in. So let's first check it this way and then we'll see. So 97, that is correct. That is in fact Charles's score, as we see. So how are we now going to handle looking for Charles from the name column and then trying to find his score? So let's go. Is going to be XLOOKUP, the lookup value, which is Charles, and then we now have the lookup array. Again, the lookup array is the array where the range where the value is, which is here, C1 to C11 in our case. And then the return array is then going to be the score. If not found, again, I'm just cleaning that as usual. We're just going to leave that blank. And then match mode, we're going to do 0 because we want an exact match. So So yeah, searches for an exact match. If not found, it returns an NA. Okay. So we can see that the difference, XLOOKUP, regardless of whether we are going from column 1 to column 2 or column 3 to column 2, it doesn't matter, it's going to work regardless. Now, what if we remove Charles? Now we can see that since we've removed Charles from that table, we are getting the NA error in for XLOOKUP. So let's see, if not found, let's say name missing. So you can see how you can customize the error message, or rather the message you want XLOOKUP to present to you in the case of the NA when the value is missing. So it's a very, very powerful lookup function. Okay. Just putting it back and then the value is back. Now, another way to look up and get values from a table using your inputs is using the index and match function together. So both of them are functions. So what you're going to do is nest one into another. So the index function is a function that you basically give the index function a table, a range array, well, an array of values. Then you give it a column index, a row and a column index, both of them, and it picks the value from that row and column index and returns it to you. So if I give the index function this whole array and then I give it a column 2 and then a row 7, it's then going to return 97, which is Charles's score here and here. So that's the index. Now, why do we need the match? Well, the match is there to give us the location of the value within the array. So if let's show that. So now we know that Charles is in the score for Charles is in row 7 of the second column. But what if we didn't actually, what if the table was extremely long, we don't know the row? We would have to use a match function to find it. So match, then we'll say his ID number. The lookup array is going to be this. And then the match type, we want an exact match. And then we're just going to go ahead and close parentheses and enter. And you can see we're getting 7 because this ID, Charles's ID, is in fact in row 7. So when the match function, if you remember the beginning functions and functions lecture, so when it runs to completion, it will bring out that 7, which the index function will then use in its function as the row number that it's looking for, and then it will then use that with the column number we give it to give us back this value. So let's see how they work together. So index, and open the parentheses, we can now see we now have the array. So we're going to give it the full array, which is this full table here. Okay, data A1 to C11. And then we are now, then we now need the row number, which is what we don't know. So we're going to go ahead and use match within that portion of the index function. The lookup value again is the ID. No need for that, just CA. Then the lookup array is going to be on the data sheet. And the ID is in A1 to A11. That's the full range for the ID. Match type, we want an exact match, so 0. And then we're just going to close parentheses. And the column number, we're looking for the score, which we know is in the second column. And then we're just going to go ahead and close the outer parentheses for index. Enter. And so we have 97. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing for using Charles as the input this time. So go ahead and write is equal to index, the array which is on the data sheet, the row number which we're going to have to use the match function, the lookup value is this, and then the lookup array is also on the data sheet, and then we're going to use C1 to C11 because it's in the third column, the name. We want an exact match, and the column number is 2. We're getting a ref error. And if we look at what we typed, we can see why. So just in case you've ever seen this, so on the errors lecture, we talked about the ref error, and I did say sometimes it can happen in lookups when the range you put in is out of scope. So we only, if you check what we did here, we put in the array as A to A, so only one column in the table array, but we're asking it to return column 2, which doesn't exist, which is why we're getting that ref error. So the simple way to do that is just to put the correct range. So at least now we have 3, A, 1 to C11, and if we now press enter, that fixes that error. So always remember that the range you're putting in here makes sense for the column number that you are trying to get back. So make sure if you want a column 2, make sure you have 3 columns across in your range instead of just 1. Okay, so now we are on horizontal ranges. So what do I mean by that? So this is a normal table, so this is more of a vertical table. So how are we going to get the horizontal range? So I want you to now know that. So XLOOKUP is horizontal lookup, and the table that you use it on is a bit different from this structure. So let's go ahead and create that table, and I'm going to do it by showing you, or rather using a function called transpose. So we're going to write equals to transpose, and then the input is an array, which is this whole range here. And then we're going to close the parentheses and enter. And what it's done, it's transposed that table. So the row is now the column, and then the column are now the rows. Okay? So this is the type of table that we use XLOOKUP for. So let's go ahead and click Ctrl C, and then right click and paste values. Let's put this in bold and put all the borders. So that's what we have. Now we have our index is now going to be rows instead of columns for XLOOKUP. So this is 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So XLOOKUP, let's see how to find the score of Charles, which is still 97 using this structure. Okay. So we're going to write equals to XLOOKUP, the lookup value, which is the ID, the table array, which is now going to be this whole array here. And now notice that XLOOKUP is now asking you for the row index number. So what are we trying to find? We're trying to find the score, which is in the second row. So the row index is going to be 2. And again, we want an exact match so that we don't have any errors. And we'll now go ahead and click enter, and then that's what we have. So ID first row, I went to the second row to get the score. So we went like that. Now let's try and do the same thing using the name row. So Charles is going to be our lookup value. The table array is still going to be this same array here. Now the row index is still going to be 2 because we're still looking for the score and we still want an exact match. But we're having an error. Why is that? Well, exactly the same thing as with VLOOKUP. You can only search going down like this. You can't search going back up. So we can't come from row 3 back to row 2, but we can go from row 1 to row 2. Just to further illustrate that, let's copy this down here. And now you can see that we are not finding Charles. So let's now copy the name and put that up here. And what we see now is we're accurately getting the score for Charles because the name is now on the top row, but we don't have any for the ID, aside from the fact that it's no longer there. But even if I put it back in, it's still not going to show. Okay, so let's put this table back. No borders, okay. And you can see they switched again. Now, let's try using index and match on that table. Like I said, index and match is very, very simple, so it doesn't matter. All you need is that row and column index number, and it will give you exactly what you need from any array, regardless of the shape. So again, we're going to go index. The array is this whole array here. Okay. Now the row number, this is now the difference. So we're in the other one, whereas we didn't know the row number, because remember that the values were down the row. Now we know the row number because the values are now columns. So the row number is 2 because that's where the score is here. So I'm going to put 2, and then the match is now going to go into the column number area. So we're now going to write match. Okay, the lookup value is here. No need for that. Okay. And then the lookup array is going to be the whole top of the ID, like that. And then the match type, we want an exact match. Then we're going to close the parentheses for match and then close the outer parentheses for index. Press enter, and that's what we have. So with index and match, it does not matter. It's going to give you what you want regardless. It just depends on where you're placing the match function. Depending on where your values are, whether they are down the row or across columns. Now, how is XLOOKUP going to hold up to that table? So we have XLOOKUP, the lookup value, which is the ID, the lookup array, which is going to be up here. Okay, the return array, which is the score. If not found, we can leave that blank, and what we want is an exact match. Close. And that's what we get. Now let's try it again. Lookup value is now name. Lookup array is this array here across the column, name. Then the return array is score, so like this. Then if not found, we can leave it blank, and then we want an exact match. So 0, close parentheses, enter, and we're still getting the value. So XLOOKUP is very, very robust and has a wide, on any shape of the table, either horizontal or vertical, it will still work. So now let's quickly look at the legacy function, the lookup function. So it's just lookup, then the lookup value, which is st, which is the id, then the lookup vector, like we're going to use this table for the legacy, is then going to be this column here. Then the result vector is going to be for the score. And we're just going to go ahead and click and enter, and you can see we're getting 97 correctly. And if we go and do the lookup Charles, lookup vector is now the name. The result vector is now the score. Close, and then we're still getting it. So you can see that the legacy function can go both ways. Now you may be wondering what's wrong with it. Well, let's see. I wonder what happens if we just casually one minute, let's move this a little to the other, and let's move this here and just delete Charles completely from that table. So Charles, that we just from the vertical table, so these values, we still expect this to act the same because the horizontal table is still there. I just moved it. But we can see that we are now getting the NA errors throughout on the vertical table. So there we go, because Charles is no longer there, name missing, all of them. So all of them are acting as we would intend, except for the legacy function. You can see it's bringing random values. So 65, 98, even though so it's going from the one before, which is Ashley's score, and the 98, which is Brooke's score, even though it should just give us an NA error. So that is why this is no longer used. So while the other newer lookup functions have an allowance for exact matches and for error handling, as with the XLOOKUP, which this is one of the best currently, this one does not have any of those things, as you can see. So that's why if you want to use a more robust lookup function in Excel, I would always recommend using the XLOOKUP. Okay. Let's just shift this a little bit closer. There we go. So that is it for single returns. We are going to start in part 2 by returning multiple values from that table. See you there. Welcome to part 2 of our lookup functions lecture. Okay, so in this part, we are going to now learn how to return multiple values from that range using these functions. So this is all we did in part 1. Let's go ahead and now go into it for part 2. So VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP, the lookup value is the ID, the table array. We know it's in the data sheet. So that's A1 to C11. Now, this is where you can now return multiple values. So instead of just writing column 2, just the number 2, we're actually going to encase this in curly braces to signify it's an array, and we're going to put 2, 3. So what this is doing is saying that we want to return the values in column 2 and 3 as an array. And we want an exact match. Okay, so curly braces, and then the column index numbers of all the columns you want to return, and then we also want an exact match. So we just go ahead and close the parentheses, and that's what we get. Score 97, and then the name is Charles. You can see it lights up with this slight blue accent, so that signifies that it's an array, dynamic one. So they return this. Okay, so what if we're now using Charles as the lookup value, again with that data A1 to C11, and again with the curly braces, pardon, that's 2, comma, A. Okay, we're still going to get the error because VLOOKUP still cannot go this way. Okay, so what about XLOOKUP? So similar to when we're returning a single value, we get the lookup value. We have the lookup array. So in this case, it's going to be A1 to A11. Okay, and now we have the return array, and the return array is going to be all of this. Now it's important that the lookup and the return array are the same length. They don't have to be the same width, but they have to be the same length. So this is A11, this is C11. If not found, let's just leave it blank, and we want an exact match on that. Now I'm just going to close parentheses and enter, and we get 97 and Charles. So just to show that, so what if if I change that from 11 to 10, you see that we get a value error. So you want to make sure that they're the same length. Again, this time just using the name, which if you remember it's on the other side. Lookup array, this time is going to be the name. And then the return array is going to then be this, the school and the name. If not found, let's just leave it blank. We want an exact match. Close parentheses, and that's what we get. The index and match, if you want to return multiple values, is very, very similar to the VLOOKUP. We also use the curly braces to signify an array. So it's data A1 to C11. Row number, we need to use the match function. The lookup value is that. Lookup array is indeed data A1 to A11. And then we want an exact match. And now the column number in curly braces, I'm just going to put 2, 3. Close. Okay, so curly braces here, 2, 3, just signify it's an array. If you this is actually the old way of writing an array before we had the dynamic ones, but this is what you still use for most array things that are going to return array. You put them into these curly braces. So 2, 3, that's the results from the second column and third column. So again, we'll get that slight blue accent, so that's what we get. So now using the name to search, pardon, instead we have the data, row number, we need to use the match function. Charles, it's now going to be in the data column C1 to 11. Okay, same thing. Now we have our HLOOKUP, so returning multiple values from the horizontal table. going to do HLOOKUP. Lookup value is the ID. The table array is going to be this whole table. Now we're doing the horizontal lookup, the row index. Now this is where it's different. So instead of just writing 2, we want to return the score and the name. So 2,3, pardon. And then we want an exact match. There we go. Okay. And this one is exactly the same. Table array. For index 1, we're doing 2,3. Also an NA, because remember, we can't go like this from here to here, only from here to here. Okay, index and match. So very similar. So we have the ID, pardon, the array, not the ID. The array, row number, which is where we are going to have our array, and we are going to match the ID on the top. Close parentheses and then close the outer parentheses, and that's what we have. Then now we're going to go ahead and do XLOOKUP. The lookup value is the ID. The lookup array is here. The return array is this one. And if not found, let's just leave it blank. We want an exact match. Close the parentheses and okay, so we can see it went down. So let's just do the other one here. So let's just move that down. And then it's equal to XLOOKUP Charles. The lookup array is name. The return array is the score and the name. If not found, just leave that blank. We want an exact match. And there we go again, down. Okay, let's move this down by one step. So now the legacy function. So let's go lookup, lookup value, lookup vector. We're going to be using this table. So the lookup value here is the ID, so the lookup vector is going to be here. The results vector is supposed to be these two, right? So let's do that. And we have an error because the legacy lookup function cannot return multiple values, even if we try it this way as well. Lookup value, which is Charles. Lookup vector is going to be the name. Then the results vector is going to be this, should be these two. Still an error. So we are getting these errors because the legacy lookup cannot properly handle missing values. It also cannot return multiple values from a table, while all the other newer lookup functions can. Okay, so there we go. That brings us to the end of the lookup ranges section, and from the next video we're going to be learning how to use all these lookup functions when dealing with tables in Excel. Welcome to part 3 of the lecture. In this part we're going to be looking at how to use all these functions with tables in Excel. Okay, so back into Excel. So now we have here the single return and then multiple returns we're going to use with the table. So let's go ahead and create our table. So again, you remember this is the data we're using before. It's in a range. So to turn this into a table, let's go ahead and move this aside. Let's move it down rather. We don't really need it. So we're just going to highlight this. We're going to go to the Insert tab and we're going to click on Table. We're going to tick my table has headers because we do ID, store, and name. And then we're just going to click OK. Now when we do that, we can see that we have now created our table. Highlighting the table is going to bring up the table design tab, the ribbon tab, and we now see all these different options for customizing our table. I'm just going to click this here to make it more in black and white, and I'm going to now come here on that table name to rename this table to score underscore data so that it's easier to use. Okay, and that is it. We have now created our table. So let's come back to our lookup functions. So now let's see how we're going to use the table to get the score of Charles using our lookup functions. So let's begin. So first is VLOOKUP, the lookup value, which is still this. And now, instead of going and writing the sheet name and then the range, all we have to do now is type score data. Column index is still 2 for the score, and we want an exact match. That's it. That's how easy it is compared to using the actual ranges, because the table name now refers to that whole range. So again, the lookup value, the table array, which is just the name of, we gave our table, which is score data, the column index number, which is 2 for the score, and then we false because we want an exact match of the ID. Okay. Now let's go VLOOKUP. Let's see Charles. Again, we're going to have score data. Column index is 2, and then we want false, an exact match. So regardless of whether it's a table or a range, VLOOKUP does not go in this other direction. So we still get an error. Now let's see how to do this using the XLOOKUP. So the lookup value is the ID. Now the lookup array. If you remember, even when we're using ranges, we're only referencing that particular column where all the values, where the relevant values are. So now for this lookup array, we're going to write score data, and then we are now going to open square brackets, and we are now going to go down to ID and then close the square bracket. So now we're referencing the table, but particularly only the ID column of the score data table. That's what that's doing. And then the return array is still going to be score data, and we are now going to reference the score column. If not found, nothing. Match mode, we want 0, an exact match, and then we're just going to close the parentheses, and we get 97. So let's do that once more. So XLOOKUP, lookup value this time is Charles, so that's in the name column. So we're going to write our score data, the table name, open the square brackets to reference the column, which is name, that's where Charles is. The return array is also going to be in score data, and the return array is the score. If not found, nothing, and we want an exact match. And that's it. Index and match is also the same. index, so the array is going to just be score data. The row number is 2, and then, the column number is 2, the row number, we have to do our match function with this. And now we're still using the table, so we're trying to match the ID, so the lookup array is going to be the score data, the ID column, and then the match type is 0 because we want an exact match, and then the column number is 2. Okay, so we're still using the score data, and then we're now putting the exact array, which is the ID, for finding the ID, and then we want to return column 2 from that table array. Once more, now using the name, so the array is always similar, it's just score data. The row number, we're going to use our match function, we're looking for Charles in the score data, name column because it's a name, match type 0, for exact column, we're trying to return the score. That's what we get. Just to also show again with the legacy function, lookup value, then we'll have our score data, ID column, score data, score column, close parentheses, and yeah, that's what we get. Pardon. Okay. And that's just the same way before if I just casually put that here and then delete it from the table until we're having NAs everywhere except for here. Still having the same problem, so even with a table, so the legacy is still not very good. Let's just go ahead and put that back. And now we have that all done. Okay, so let's now see how we can return multiple values using tables. So first up, VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP, we have the lookup value, which is the ID. Just going to put in the score data for the table array column when you want to return 2 and 3, and we want an exact match. So there we go, and that's it. So similarly, we lookup value Charles, again score data, returning 2, 3, and I don't want a false and exact match. Still going to give us an error. The goal goes left to right, not right to left. XLOOKUP. Now let's pay attention. So the structure for the return array in XLOOKUP is a bit different when we're dealing with tables. Okay, so we're going to have our lookup value, the lookup array, which is still going to just be the score data, the ID column. Now the return array is going to be score data. Going to open the square brackets, open the square bracket again. We're going score, close the square bracket, use the range assignment to open it again, name, close, and then close the outer square bracket. So we effectively are going score to name because we have ID, score, then name. So that's the return array. And then we're going to put a comma. If not found nothing, we want an exact match. Then we're going to close that, and that's what we get. Okay, so let's do it one more time for Charles. So XLOOKUP, lookup value is Charles. The lookup array is score data, name. Now the return array, we're going to do score data again. Open a square bracket. Within it, we're going to open another one for score, then 2 name. Close that, then close the outer square bracket. If not found, nothing. Match mode exact, then you close the parentheses. So there it is. Okay. So this is the structure for XLOOKUP returning multiple values from the table, like that. Okay. So index and match. Going to use index, the array, which is simply the score data table. The row number, we're going to use our match, and we're going to match the ID. So the lookup is going to be score data ID, want an exact match, and then the column number we want to return 2, 3 in the array brackets, like that. Then if we want to go ahead and do Charles, we'll index the array, which is score data. The row number, we have to match that. And we're looking for Charles, where in the score data it's a name. So in the name column, we want an exact match. And the column number I want to return is 2, 3. And that's what we get again. Now, as you would expect, in the legacy, if we try to look that up, lookup vector is going to be score data in the ID column. The results vector, if we try, pardon, now we're going to get an error again. It cannot return multiple values regardless. Just for learning, let's do this one too. That's now in name. Result vector is going to be score data. Okay, so much easier than with ranges, and very straightforward and quite easy. So that brings us to the end. Okay, that is all the lookup functions in Excel used on ranges and in tables. Thank you very much for sitting through the lectures, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching, and if you learned something new or enjoyed this video, be sure to show us support by clicking like and subscribe. Your support helps us to bring you even better content, so stay tuned for the next exciting video. You can also click the link below to see other free and paid videos on other exciting topics. If the click did not work, kindly copy the link and paste on your browser. Thank you, and see you in the next video.